I knew something was wrong the second I saw the 8-year-old girl reach for the silver-wrapped box on the children's gift table. Wrong ribbon tension, wrong label placement, wrong everything about the way it sat among the others I'd personally staged. Wait, sweetheart, not that one. I was already moving, already breaking every rule of my carefully anonymous Santa role, already yanking the present out of her small hands before I consciously understood why. The girl blinked up at me, startled but not scared, and I forced a smile through the dread pooling in my stomach. Santa's rules: the best presents come last. Then the ballroom doors exploded open and armed men in black suits poured through like a flood, and I knew my carefully rebuilt life had just shattered. Everyone on the ground, now! But I stayed standing, the tampered gift clutched to my chest, because I'd just locked eyes with the man leading the security team, and Dario Rizzo looked at me like I was a ghost he'd been hunting for 3 years. His face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds: shock, recognition, fury. Then it locked down into something colder than December ice. "Clear the children to the north wing," he said, without breaking eye contact with me. "Full lockdown protocol. No one leaves the building." The little girl, his daughter, I realized with sick certainty, grabbed my velvet coat. "But Santa, Lucia, go with Maria now." His voice gentled fractionally for her, but his hand was already moving toward the weapon I knew he carried under that perfectly tailored suit jacket. I knelt fast, keeping the suspect gift in one hand while meeting the child's worried brown eyes. "Your dad's right, sweetheart. This is just grown-up boring stuff. I'll find you later, okay?" She studied my face with an intelligence that reminded me devastatingly of her father, then nodded and let the uniformed woman lead her away. The moment the children's wing doors closed, Dario crossed the ballroom in 4 long strides and gripped my upper arm hard enough to leave marks. "Servants' corridor, now!" I could have fought, could have screamed, could have dropped the gift and run. Instead, I let him haul me through a concealed door and down a sterile white hallway that smelled like commercial kitchen and expensive secrets. He shoved me into what looked like an inventory closet and slammed the door. The space was barely 6 feet square, lined with restaurant-grade shelving and lit by a single fluorescent tube that made his eyes look like black ice. 3 years! His voice was conversational, which meant he was furious. 3 years of silence, and you show up in my house dressed like Santa Claus holding a gift you just stole from my daughter. I didn't steal it, I intercepted it. I set the box carefully on a shelf, angling it so he could see the label. "Look at the ribbon. I'm looking at you." "Then you're not paying attention." I pointed at the box without touching it. I wrapped every gift on that table personally. Identical paper, color-coded ribbons, specific fold pattern. "This one's ribbon is tied wrong. The tape is reinforced. The label placement is 3 centimeters off standard." He went still in that predator way I remembered too well. "You're telling me this gift is tampered. I'm telling you someone swapped it after I staged the table." I met his eyes and refused to flinch. "And I'm telling you I stopped your daughter from opening it approximately 45 seconds before your security team responded to whatever alert triggered the sweep. You're welcome." For a long moment he just stared at me, and I could see him running calculations behind those dark eyes. Threat assessment, probability analysis, whether to believe the woman who'd vanished from his life without explanation. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Matteo, gift table, children's ballroom, silver package addressed to Lucia. I need it analyzed immediately. Treat it as hostile." A pause. "I don't care what you're doing. Get it done." He ended the call and turned that terrifying focus back on me. "Who hired you for this event?" "Premier Kids Events through your estate coordinator. I run a small holiday entertainment service. Performers, props, Santa packages." The words came out steady despite my racing heart. It was a last-minute booking. High-profile donor party, premium rate, cash on completion. I needed the money, so I took it. "Premium rate." Something dangerous moved behind his expression. "How premium?" "Enough to cover my mother's medical payment deadline and keep my business license active through the lawsuit." I lifted my chin. "I'm very good at what I do, Dario. When I stage a gift table, I know every detail, which means I know when someone's touched my work." "Your work?" He stepped closer, crowding me back against the shelving. You disappeared in the middle of the night 3 years ago with 8 words on my pillow. I can't do this anymore, I'm sorry. And now you expect me to believe it's coincidence you're here the same night someone tries to harm Lucia? I didn't even know you had a daughter. The words came out sharper than I intended. I didn't know anything about your life because I left Dario. Completely. That was the point. And yet, here you are. Yes, here I am, saving your child from whatever's in that box. I held his stare, even though my knees were shaking. So you can either waste time being angry at me, or you can figure out who's trying to hurt her. Your choice. His jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought he might actually lose his famous control. Then his phone buzzed. He answered without looking away from me. Report. His expression went lethal. I see. Secure it in evidence. And Matteo? Run the employment background on every vendor who had access to that staging area in the last 6 hours. I want names, references, and security footage. Another pause. Because someone put a tracker and a sedative patch inside a children's toy. And I'm going to find out who. My stomach went cold. Tracker and sedative? High-grade location device and a delayed release patch that would have put an 8-year-old to sleep within 20 minutes. He pocketed his phone and studied me with an expression I couldn't read. Plenty of time to walk her out of a crowded party and into a vehicle before anyone noticed. I thought of Lucia's trusting face, her small hand in mine, the way she'd called me Santa like it meant safety. Who would do that? That's an excellent question. He leaned one hand against the shelf behind my head, caging me in. One you're uniquely positioned to help me answer, Callista. You cataloged every gift. You know the staging protocol. You can identify what changed and when. I'm not. I stopped. Because my brain was already running through vendor manifests and delivery windows and access points without my permission. The gifts were delivered in 3 waves. Morning setup, afternoon editions, last-minute VIP packages. I personally inspected and wrapped everything in the secure prep room before transferring them to the display table. Who had access to the prep room? Estate staff, with clearance badges, your event coordinator, the head of security. I paused. And one courier delivery that arrived after I'd already started staging. A late VIP package that required signature verification. His eyes sharpened. What signature? Mine. They said it was protocol for high-value items. I felt my chest tighten. I signed a digital tablet. They asked for my full legal name and business license number. Which means someone now has your verified identity linked to this event. He said it calmly, like he was discussing weather, but I saw the calculation behind it. Convenient if they wanted to frame you as the inside breach. I'm not. I know. He cut me off quietly. If you were compromised, you wouldn't have intercepted the gift. You would have let Lucia open it and disappeared in the chaos. His hand shifted, not quite touching my face, but close enough that I felt the heat of it. Which means you just became either a witness I need to protect or a target someone needs to eliminate, possibly both. I can't stay here. My voice came out too fast. I have a business to run, a mother's treatment payment due by end of day December 25th, and a legal meeting on the 27th that I cannot miss. I did you a favor, Dario. Let me leave. No, that's not. You think whoever planted that device is going to let you walk away? His voice dropped to something almost gentle, which was somehow worse than anger. You're a loose end, Callista. The moment you step off this property, you're a problem they'll solve permanently. So I'm a prisoner. You're under protection. He straightened but didn't step back. Until I identify who compromised my daughter's safety, you stay where I can verify your breathing. Non-negotiable, I wanted to argue. Wanted to shove past him and run like I had 3 years ago. But I'd seen the tracker, seen the sedative patch, seen the cold competence in his eyes that said he already knew how this kind of thing ended for unprotected witnesses. I want terms, I said instead. His eyebrow lifted fractionally. You're negotiating? You need what's in my head. Vendor lists, staging protocols, timing details. I need to keep my life from collapsing while I'm stuck here. I straightened my shoulders and met his eyes. So yes, I'm negotiating. Unless you'd prefer I stop cooperating and you can figure it out yourself. For a moment, I thought I saw something almost like approval flicker across his face. Terms, he said. Go ahead. Immediate partial payment. Half the Santa Fe escrowed or direct deposit tonight so I can authorize my mother's treatment payment before the clinic closes tomorrow. Done. Written guarantee that my business won't be named or blamed. Publicly in whatever this situation becomes. Agreed. Supervised phone access so I can manage my actual life, reschedule gigs, handle vendors, keep my business partner from thinking I've vanished. Supervised, he emphasized. And recorded. Fine, I pulled in a breath. And when you identify your insider threat, I walk away with a completion bonus and a clean separation. No strings, no surveillance, no I know where you live implications. That, he said quietly, depends on whether you're telling me the truth about why you're really here. I'm here because I needed $12,000 before Christmas, and someone offered me exactly that amount to play Santa for 4 hours. I held his stare. That's the only truth that matters. He studied me for a long moment, and I refused to look away even though my pulse was hammering. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something, and turned the screen toward me. Account number. I recited it, watched him transfer $6,000 with 3 taps, and felt something loosen fractionally in my chest. My mother's treatment was safe. The lawsuit wouldn't kill my business this week. I was still trapped in a mansion with my dangerous ex-lover and a faceless enemy who wanted to abduct a child, but at least I could pay my bills. Anything else? He asked. Where am I sleeping? Guest suite, north wing, 2 doors from Lucia's room. His expression was unreadable. She bonded with you. That doesn't happen often. I didn't ask for that. I know. He finally stepped back, giving me space to breathe. But it happened anyway, which means you're staying close, Callista, for her safety and yours. He opened the door and gestured for me to follow. I did, because I didn't have a choice. But as I walked past him into the hallway, I caught his reflection in the polished chrome of a door handle, and saw the way his eyes tracked my movement like I was something precious he'd lost once and wouldn't risk losing again. That was the moment I knew I was in more danger than any tracker or sedative could ever pose. The guest suite was bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate grounds, all manicured snow and security lights that turned the darkness into a grid of surveillance zones. The bed was king-sized with hotel-quality linens. The bathroom had heated floors and a shower with 6 different spray settings. I hated every inch of it. Not because it wasn't beautiful, it was, but because it reminded me of the life I'd walked away from 3 years ago, when I'd realized that loving Dario Rizzo meant becoming another thing he owned. I was unpacking the overnight bag his staff had somehow procured, toiletries, pajamas, clothes in exactly my size, when someone knocked. Come in, I called, expecting a housekeeper. Lucia pushed the door open and stood in the threshold, wearing fleece pajamas printed with snowflakes. Her dark hair was damp from a bath, and she was clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Santa, her voice was small. Are you really staying? I sat on the edge of the bed and gestured for her to come closer. For a little while, yeah. Is that okay? She crossed the room and climbed up beside me without asking permission. Dad said there was a problem with one of the presents. He said you fixed it. Smart kid. Too smart. I did, I said carefully. Sometimes presents get mixed up. It's my job to make sure the right ones go to the right people. Were you scared? A little bit, I admitted, because lying to children had never been my style. But your dad's security team is really good. They made sure everyone stayed safe. She studied me with those sharp brown eyes. You know my dad from before. It wasn't a question. I do, I said. A long time ago. He looked at you different than he looks at other people. She hugged her rabbit tighter. Like when he looks at me, like you're important. My chest went tight. Lucia, I'm not supposed to be out of my room after 8:30, she said, shifting topics with the fluid logic of 8-year-olds. But I wanted to make sure you were real. Sometimes I dream things, and then they're not there in the morning. I understood that fear in my bones, the terror that good things vanished if you didn't hold them tight enough. I'm real, I promised. And I'll see you at breakfast, okay? She nodded, slid off the bed, and walked to the door. Then she turned back. Santa doesn't lie, she said seriously. That's how I know you're one of the good ones. She was gone before I could figure out how to answer. I sat alone in that beautiful prison and tried not to think about how a child I'd known for 3 hours had already crawled under my defenses. Tried not to think about how her father had done the same thing 3 years ago, and I'd barely survived leaving. Morning came with coffee delivered by a silent staff member and a handwritten note on a state letterhead. Library. 9 a.m. Bring your vendor files. I showed up at 8:55 wearing clothes from the mysteriously stocked closet. Black pants, a gray sweater, boots that fit perfectly, and found Dario already there. The library was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a desk that probably cost more than my car. He stood by the windows with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care if he's the mayor's nephew, he said quietly. If his name is on that access log, I want him in a room where I can ask questions. Legally, Matteo. I'm not interested in shortcuts that create problems later. A pause. Good. And the courier company? I stayed silent, watching the morning light cut across his shoulders. Shell Corporation, 3 layers deep, dissolved yesterday. His voice went cold, which means someone planned this professionally and cleaned up fast. Start tracing the registration chain. I want to know who signed the incorporation papers. He ended the call and turned. His eyes tracked over me, professional assessment that somehow felt intimate. You look rested, he said. I look trapped, I corrected. There's a difference. Did you sleep? Did you? A muscle twitched in his jaw. Lucia visited you last night. She wanted to make sure I was real. I crossed my arms. You have cameras in my room. I have cameras in the hallways. She left her wing at 8:42 and returned at 8:51. He moved to the desk and opened a laptop. I'm not spying on you, Callista. I'm protecting my daughter. By monitoring everyone who gets near her. Yes, no apology in it. Sit down, we have work to do. I sat because arguing wouldn't change anything. He pulled up security footage on the screen, time-stamped views of the gift staging area. Walk me through your process, he said. Every step. So I did. I explained the delivery waves, the inspection protocol, the wrapping system. I showed him how I'd color-coded ribbons by age group and tracked every item in a digital spreadsheet that lived on my phone. He listened without interrupting, and I watched him process information the way I remembered. Total focus, pattern recognition, the kind of intelligence that made him dangerous. The courier arrived at 2:47, he said, pulling up footage of a man in a generic delivery uniform. You signed for one package. I leaned closer to the screen. VIP gift, late edition. He said it needed signature verification because it was insured. And you gave him your legal name and business license number. He had a tablet, official-looking forms. I stopped. I didn't think someone would use it to frame me for trying to hurt a child. Dario's hand moved before I could process it. A brief touch to my wrist, gone before I could react. You're not framed yet, he said quietly. But if this goes public, that signature ties you to the breach, which means keeping you safe also keeps you silent. How reassuring. It's honest. He pulled up another angle. The courier accessed the prep room for 6 minutes, long enough to swap one package. But I inspected everything after he left, I said, frowning. I would have noticed, unless he swapped it during transport to the display table. Dario fast-forwarded through footage. You made 3 trips. First trip, 12 packages. Second trip, 8. Third trip, 5, including the silver one addressed to Lucia. I watched myself on screen, carrying armloads of wrapped gifts through a service corridor. On the third trip, I'd balanced 5 boxes and pushed through a door with my hip. I couldn't see the labels, I realized. I was just grabbing what I'd staged in order. And someone knew your system well enough to time the swap. He froze the footage on a figure in staff uniform, face angled away from the camera. This person entered the prep room 90 seconds after you left on trip 2. They had 4 minutes before you returned. My pulse kicked up. Can you identify them? Badge number puts them as junior event staff. But when Matteo pulled personnel records, that badge was reported stolen 3 weeks ago. His eyes met mine. Someone's been planning this since before you were hired. The implications settled over me like cold water. This wasn't about me, I said slowly. They used me. The late booking, the signature verification, the swap during my transport. I was the patsy from the beginning. Yes. He stood and moved to a sidebar where crystal decanters held amber liquid. He poured 2 fingers of something expensive and handed me the glass, which means whoever orchestrated this knows how events are run, how security protocols work, and how to exploit both. I took the whiskey because my hands needed something to hold. Someone inside your organization. Or someone who used to be. He leaned against the desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker. Mateo's running. Background on everyone who had estate access in the last month. But that's over 200 people. You need to narrow it, I said, my brain clicking into problem-solving mode despite everything. Not everyone had the skill to plan this. You need someone who understands event logistics, security gaps, and your specific vulnerabilities. His eyes sharpened. Keep going. They knew Lucia would be at that gift table. They knew the timing of the party, the layout, the staging process. They knew enough about your security to avoid direct camera angles. I set down the glass and pulled out my phone. Let me see your event coordinator's communications. Every vendor she contacted, every change order, every last-minute addition. Why? Because someone fed her the idea to hire me specifically. I opened my email and pulled up the original booking request. Look at the timeline. I was contacted December 18th, 4 days ago. Last-minute premium booking for December 22nd. They offered double my normal rate before I even quoted a price. Dario took my phone and read the email chain, his expression going cold. The coordinator didn't send this, he said quietly. Look at the signature block. I looked. The email claimed to be from Isabella Marchetti, estate events coordinator, but the actual email address was a slight variation, imarchetti.events instead of imarchetti at the estate domain. Spoofed, I breathed. Someone impersonated your coordinator. And you didn't notice because you were desperate for the money. No judgment in it, just fact. No, I admitted. I didn't notice because I wanted to believe someone actually valued my work enough to pay that rate. His hand found my chin, tilting my face up. Your work is worth that rate, Callista. That's not the problem. The problem is someone knew you well enough to exploit exactly what you needed. How would they know? I stopped, ice forming in my stomach. You kept tabs on me. Yes, for 3 years. Yes, no apology. I needed to know you were safe. You needed to control. I needed to know the woman I loved didn't end up dead in an alley because she walked away from my protection. His voice stayed level, but something cracked beneath it. And I was right to worry because here you are, caught in someone else's game because I didn't protect you well enough. I should have been furious, should have shoved him away and demanded he stop rewriting history. But all I could think was that he'd said loved, past tense, and it shouldn't have hurt as much as it did. Someone accessed your surveillance on me, I said, forcing my brain back to the problem. That's how they knew my financial pressure points. That's how they knew I'd take the job. Mateo, Dario said immediately. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I need an audit on every access to external surveillance files in the last 60 days. Priority flag. Callista Moreno, business finances, personal contacts. He listened. I don't care if it requires pulling archived logs. Do it. He ended the call and looked at me. If someone in my organization leaked that information, I'll know by tonight. And then what? I asked. You said you don't kill people. I don't. His smile was cold. But I can destroy someone's life in ways that make them wish I had. A knock at the door interrupted whatever I might have said. Mateo Caruso entered, polished, professional, every inch the trusted underboss. He carried a tablet and wore an expression of concerned efficiency. Updates, he said, nodding to me politely before focusing on Dario. The courier company Shell Corporation traces back to a law firm in the Caymans, dead end without a federal warrant, which we can't get without going public. Keep digging, Dario said. What else? The badge used to access the prep room? Stolen from a junior staff member who was terminated 4 months ago. She filed a police report at the time, but the badge never turned up. Name? Sophie Reeves, 23, event staff, terminated for repeated tardiness. Clean record otherwise. I can bring her in for questions if you want. I frowned. 4 months ago is a long planning window. If they stole her badge that far back, they've been positioning for this since summer. Mateo's eyes flicked to me with something that might have been surprise. That's a fair point. Which means this isn't opportunistic, Dario said. This is a long-game strategy. Mateo, I want deep background on anyone terminated or transferred in the last year. Cross-reference with anyone who had access to security systems or event protocols. That's at least 40 people. Then you'll be busy. Dario's tone allowed no argument. Prioritize anyone with family connections to rival operations or legal exposure we might have leveraged. Mateo nodded and left, and I was alone with Dario again. You trust him, I observed. I trust his competence. Dario closed the laptop. Trust is a different question. You don't trust anyone. I trust Lucia. He moved to the window, and I saw the weight he carried in the line of his shoulders. And I trusted you once, before I left, before you disappeared without explanation. He turned to face me. Why did you, Callista? 3 years, and I still don't know. This was the conversation I'd been avoiding since the moment I saw him in that ballroom. Because loving you meant losing myself, I said quietly. Every decision filtered through your security concerns. Every friendship vetted. Every job opportunity assessed for risk. I woke up one morning and realized I'd become someone who asked permission to exist. I was protecting you. You were controlling me. I stood, needing the distance. And I know you didn't mean it as control. I know your world is dangerous and precautions are necessary. But Dario, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't be the person you needed me to be and still be myself. Silence stretched between us. So you chose yourself, he said finally. Yes. And now you're back in the cage you escaped. Something raw moved across his face. Ironic. Temporary, I corrected. I'm here until the threat is resolved. Then I leave. That was the deal. And if I asked you to stay? My heart kicked against my ribs. Don't. Why not? Because you already know the answer. I met his eyes. And asking anyway is just another way of controlling the outcome. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides and stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to hold his gaze. I'm not asking you to give up yourself, Callista. I'm asking if there's a version of this where we both get what we need. There isn't. But my voice came out less certain than I wanted. You don't know that. I lived it, Dario. I know exactly. The door slammed open and Mateo was back. His professional mask cracked. We have a problem. Dario turned, and I saw him shift into command mode instantly. Report. Lucia's school just called. Someone tried to pick her up early, claimed to be authorized family pickup with proper credentials. The school verified against our list and caught the discrepancy, but whoever it was had detailed information. Her schedule, her teacher's name, the security protocols. My blood went cold. Where is she now? Still at school, locked in the headmaster's office with 2 of our security. Mateo looked at Dario. But this confirms the threat is active and escalating. They're not waiting for another party. This was attempted during the mid-morning transition to music class. Someone who knew her exact schedule. Dario was already moving, pulling a gun from a desk drawer and checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. Get the car, full security detail. I want Lucia back here in 20 minutes. I'm coming with you, I said. No. She trusts me, Dario. If she's scared, you need someone she trusts who isn't carrying a weapon. I grabbed my coat from the chair. Besides, I'm already a target. Keeping me here doesn't make me safer. He looked like he wanted to argue, but Mateo was already heading for the door and time was bleeding away. Stay close to me, Dario said finally. And if I tell you to get down, you don't ask questions. Understood? Understood. We moved. The private school was all brick and ivy, the kind of place where tuition cost more than most people's mortgages. Dario's security team had already secured the perimeter, black SUVs positioned at every exit, men in suits talking into earpieces. We went in through a side entrance, and I stayed 2 steps behind Dario as he navigated hallways, lined with children's artwork and achievement certificates. The headmaster's office was oak-paneled and tense. Lucaya sat in a leather chair that was too big for her, flanked by 2 security guards, who looked ready to fight their way through an army. When she saw Dario, she launched herself at him. He caught her and held on tight, and I saw his careful control fracture for just a moment. "I'm okay, Dad," she said into his shoulder. "Mrs. Patterson didn't let the man take me." "You did exactly right," Dario said, his voice rough. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart." She pulled back and saw me standing in the doorway. "Santa came too?" "I told you I was real," I said, managing a smile I didn't feel. No disappearing. The headmaster, a silver-haired woman in her 60s, stood from her desk. "Mr. Rizzo, we followed protocol to the letter. The man had what appeared to be legitimate credentials, but when we cross-checked against your authorized list, his name wasn't there. We immediately locked down and called your security." "What name did he use?" Dario asked. "Thomas Rizzo. He claimed to be Lucia's uncle." I watched Dario's face go blank in the way that meant he was processing something devastating. "I don't have a brother," he said quietly. "We know that now," the headmaster said. "But he had documents, notarized letters, identification, even photographs of himself with Lucia at what appeared to be family events. Fabricated." Dario set Lucia down, but kept her hand in his. "Matteo, I want those documents and every second of security footage from the moment he arrived." "Already being copied," Matteo confirmed. I knelt beside Lucia. "Did you see the man, sweetheart?" She nodded. He smiled a lot, but his smile didn't match his eyes. Smart, observant, terrifyingly vulnerable. My chest ached. "That's exactly the kind of thing you should notice," I told her. "You're very brave." "Santa doesn't lie," she said again, like it was an anchor point. We got her into the car, Lucia between Dario and me in the back seat, security leading and trailing us in a convoy that screamed danger to anyone watching. Halfway back to the estate, Lucia fell asleep with her head against my arm. Dario watched us across the seat, his expression unreadable. "She doesn't trust easily," he said. Quietly, "I've had nannies, tutors, security for 3 years. None of them got through like you did in 3 hours. Maybe that's because I'm not trying to manage her," I said. "I'm just treating her like a person." "Is that what you think I do? Manage her?" "I think you love her so much it terrifies you." I adjusted my arms so Lucia could sleep more comfortably. "And I think that terror makes you hold tighter than you should. She's 8 years old and people are trying to take her." His voice was low, controlled, lethal. "How tight should I hold?" "Tight enough to keep her safe. Not so tight she can't breathe." I met his eyes. "Sound familiar?" He looked away first. We made it back to the estate without incident. Dario carried Lucia to her room, and I followed because she'd grabbed my hand in her sleep and hadn't let go. Her room was beautiful, soft colors, books everywhere, a window seat overlooking the gardens. Dario laid her on the bed and carefully removed her shoes. I pulled a blanket over her. She stirred, eyes opening halfway. "Don't leave, Santa." "I'm right here," I promised. "Both of you," she mumbled. "Stay both." Dario and I exchanged a look. "We'll be right outside," he told her. "No, here." Her hand tightened on mine. "Please." So we stayed. Dario sat in the chair by her desk, and I curled up in the window seat, and we watched an 8-year-old girl sleep while the winter sun tracked across the floor. "I adopted her 18 months ago," Dario said eventually, his voice barely above a whisper. "Her parents were connected to my world, good people caught in bad circumstances. They died in a car accident that wasn't an accident." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. I couldn't save them, but I could save her. His eyes never left Lucia's sleeping face. The custody process was complicated. Legal challenges from distant relatives who wanted access to her trust fund. Investigations into whether I was fit to parent. It took 6 months and more lawyers than I can count. "But you won." "I won." His smile was bitter. "And now someone's trying to prove I can't keep her safe, that I'm unfit, that she'd be better off in someone else's care." The pieces clicked together in my head. "This isn't just about kidnapping her," I said slowly. "It's about custody. Someone's building a case that you're too dangerous, too compromised, too controlling to be her legal guardian. And if they succeed, they get access to her inheritance, legal authority, the ability to make decisions about her life." He finally looked at me. That's why they're being careful. No direct violence, no obvious criminal activity that could be traced back. Just a pattern of threats that make me look unstable and her look vulnerable. The gift swap could be explained as a security failure on my part. The school pickup attempt, same thing. Every incident makes me look less capable of protecting her. His hands tightened on the chair arms. And bringing you here, keeping you against your will? That makes me look even worse. I'm not against my will. The words came out before I could think them through. I negotiated terms. I chose to help. Did you? His eyes were dark, knowing. Or did I manipulate you into staying by making you feel responsible for Lucia's safety? I wanted to argue. Wanted to say I was here purely for professional reasons. But Lucia's hand was still in mine, and I'd already started caring about whether she felt safe. Maybe both things are true, I said finally. Maybe you manipulated the situation and I still chose to stay. And when this is over, he asked, when the threat is resolved and Lucia is safe and you've fulfilled your contract, I leave, I said. Like we agreed. Even though she'll be hurt? Even though. I looked at Lucia's sleeping face. Because staying would hurt her more eventually. She needs to learn that people can care about her and still have their own lives. That love doesn't mean possession. Is that what you think I'm teaching her? I think you're teaching her that the world is dangerous and the only safety is in control. I met his eyes. And I think if she grows up believing that, she'll either become you or she'll break trying not to. He stood abruptly and moved to the window, his back to me. You don't pull punches, do you? His voice was rough. You asked. I did. He braced his hands on the window frame. 3 years ago, when you left, I told myself you were wrong. That my way was the only way to keep people safe. That if you really loved me, you'd understand. I waited. But watching you with Lucia, seeing how she trusts you precisely because you don't try to control her. He turned to face me. Maybe you weren't wrong. Maybe I was. My breath caught. Dario. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He answered with a clipped, what? Then listened, his expression going cold. When? A pause. Show me. He ended the call and looked at me. Matteo found something. We need to go. Lucia. Security's outside her door. She's safe. He was already moving. But you need to see this, Callista. Now. I followed him back to the library, where Matteo had pulled up footage on multiple screens. It was nearly 4 in the afternoon. We'd been at Lucia's school for almost 3 hours, and she'd slept for the better part of an hour after we returned. Time had slipped away in that quiet room, and now the winter light was already fading. This is from 3 weeks ago, Matteo said, indicating a timestamp. Estate cameras, North Service entrance. The footage showed a figure in maintenance uniform accessing a storage area. That's where event supplies are kept, I said, recognizing the space. Wrapping paper, ribbons, decorations. Keep watching, Matteo said. The figure emerged 15 minutes later carrying a small box. The camera angle was poor, but for just a moment, the person's face was visible. My stomach dropped. That's Sophie Reeves, I said. The terminated staff member whose badge was stolen. No, Dario said quietly. That's someone wearing a very good disguise. Look at the hands. I looked. The hands were masculine, too broad for the slight build of the person in the uniform. Someone dressed as Sophie to access the supplies, I said. Someone who knew her termination would provide cover. And someone who knew exactly which cameras to avoid. Matteo pulled up another angle. Until this one. We just found it buried in the archived footage. The new angle showed the figure from the side, and for half a second, as they turned, the disguise shifted. I saw a signet ring on the right hand, distinctive, gold, with an engraved crest. The same ring I'd seen Matteo wear every single day. And I stopped breathing, because I knew that ring. I'd seen it an hour ago at the school, when Matteo had gestured at the headmaster's footage. Matteo, I said, my voice coming out strangled. Where were you 3 weeks ago, on December 2nd? He went very still. Dario's hand moved to his weapon. Answer her, Dario said softly. Matteo's professional mask cracked into something cold and calculated. I underestimated you, Callista. I thought you were just a desperate woman who needed money. I didn't expect you to actually be intelligent. You set me up, I said. The spoofed email, the signature, all of it. You knew my financial situation because you accessed Dario's surveillance files. I needed a credible inside player, he shrugged. You were perfect, close enough to Dario's past to be plausible, desperate enough to take the job, smart enough to make the frame believable when it all went public. Dario's gun was out now, aimed steady at his underboss. Why? Because you're weak, Matteo's voice was almost sad. You adopted a child, Dario. You brought emotion into a business that requires cold calculation. You've compromised our entire operation because you can't separate family from power. So you tried to take my daughter. I tried to prove you're unfit to lead. Matteo's hand moved slowly toward his own weapon. The organization needs someone who understands that sentiment is liability. Someone who makes decisions based on strategy, not feeling. Someone like you, I said. Exactly like me. His gun cleared his holster. And now we have a problem. Because you've both seen too much, and I can't let you walk out of this room. Dario's aim never wavered. You point that weapon at her and you're dead. I'm already dead if I back down now. Matteo's smile was cold. So here's how this ends. I moved. I didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just grabbed the crystal decanter from the desk and threw it at Matteo's head with every ounce of strength I had. It shattered against his temple, and he staggered, his gun firing wild. Dario was on him in seconds, weapon pressed to his throat, knee in his spine. Don't move, Dario said, deadly calm. Don't breathe wrong. Don't give me a reason. Security flooded in, 4 men with weapons drawn. Take him, Dario said. Containment room, full restraints. I want my lawyers and federal prosecutors notified immediately. He's being transferred to official custody within 2 hours. And someone get medical in here. Callista's bleeding. I looked down and saw blood soaking through my sweater where Matteo's wild shot had grazed my side. The adrenaline crash hit me like a wall, and my knees buckled. Dario caught me before I hit the floor. I've got you, he said, and his voice cracked. I've got you, Callista. Stay with me. Just a graze, I managed. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I'm fine. I pressed my hand to the wound and felt warmth, but not the deep heat of a serious injury. It barely caught me, but Dario was already carrying me, already moving through hallways I couldn't track, already barking orders for the estate doctor. And somewhere between the library and the medical room, his control finally shattered. You could have been killed, he said roughly. You threw yourself between me and a loaded gun. I threw a decanter at his head, I corrected. It's not the same thing. Callista. I'm okay, Dario. I promise. I'm okay. He set me on an examination table and stepped back, his hands shaking. I'd never seen his hands shake before. I can't lose you again, he said quietly. I know I don't have the right to ask you to stay. I know I controlled you and suffocated you and made you run. But Callista, if you died protecting me. I didn't die. I reached for his hand and pulled him closer. I'm right here, bleeding on your medical table and probably ruining your very expensive furniture. But here. His laugh was broken. I don't care about the furniture. You should. This is leather. Callista. I kissed him. I didn't plan it, didn't think it through, just pulled him down and pressed my mouth to his because he was shaking and I was bleeding and we'd almost died, and I needed him to know I was alive. He froze for half a heartbeat. Then he kissed me back like a man drowning. His hands framed my face, careful of the wound in my side, and he kissed me like he was memorizing the taste of me, like he'd been starving for 3 years, and I was air and water and everything he needed to survive. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was a bad idea, I whispered. Terrible idea, he agreed. We shouldn't do it again. Definitely not. We stared at each other. Then I grabbed his coat and kissed him again, harder this time, with 3 years of want and fear and unfinished things between us. This time he made a sound low in his throat and pressed closer, his hand sliding into my hair, his body heat soaking through my ruined sweater. This time I tasted desperation and something deeper, something that felt dangerously like hope. When the doctor arrived and cleared his throat pointedly, We broke apart like guilty teenagers. I'll wait outside, Dario said, his voice wrecked. Dario. He looked back at me, and I saw everything in his eyes that he wasn't saying. I'm glad you're alive, he said quietly. Then he was gone, and I was alone with a doctor who was very professionally not mentioning that he'd just walked in on his employer, kissing a woman who was bleeding on the examination table. The graze was shallow, the treatment quick. 12 stitches, antibiotics, strict orders to rest. I ignored all of it and went looking for Dario. I found him in Lucia's room, sitting in the chair by her bed, watching her sleep. The evening had settled in, it was past her 8:30 bedtime, and she was curled under her blankets, with her stuffed rabbit tucked against her chest. Is she okay? I asked from the doorway. She doesn't know what happened yet. He didn't look away from his daughter. She's safe and sleeping, and doesn't know her life was just threatened by the man I trusted most. I crossed the room and sat on the edge of Lucia's bed. What happens to Matteo? Legal consequences, federal prosecution, financial ruin. His voice was flat. My lawyers are already coordinating with the prosecutor's office. He'll be transferred to federal custody tonight. Everything short of killing him, because I keep my rules even when people betray me. And Lucia stays with me. Matteo's plan failed. There's no custody case, no evidence of unfitness, no legal vulnerability. He finally looked at me. She's safe, Callista. Because of you. Because of us, I corrected. You figured out the pattern. I just threw the decanter. You saved my life. You saved mine 3 years ago when you let me leave. The words came out quiet. I know you didn't see it that way, but Dario, if you'd fought me, if you'd tried to force me to stay, I would have broken. Instead, you let me go. Even though it hurt you, that was the most loving thing you could have done. His eyes were dark, full of things I wasn't ready to name. And now, he asked. Now I don't know, I looked at Lucia's sleeping face. I know I care about her. I know I don't want to hurt her by leaving. But I also know I can't stay if staying means going back to the way things were. Then we find a new way. He stood and moved to where I sat. I'm not asking you to give up yourself, Callista. I'm asking if you're willing to help me become someone who deserves you. My breath caught. That's not, I know I controlled you. I know I suffocated you with security and restrictions and my own fear. His hand cupped my face, gentle despite everything. But I'm asking for a chance to do better, to learn what partnership looks like instead of possession. Dario, stay, he said quietly. Not as a prisoner, not as a kept woman. Stay as my partner. Help me build something better. I wanted to say yes. Wanted it so badly my chest ached. But I'd walked away once because I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't go back to that suffocation no matter how much I wanted him. I need time, I said finally. I need to know this is real and not just adrenaline and fear and Lucia's big eyes making us both soft. How much time? I don't know. Weeks, maybe months. I met his eyes. But I'll stay through Christmas. I'll help you navigate the aftermath of Matteo's arrest. I'll make sure Lucia feels safe, and then we'll see. It wasn't yes, but it wasn't a no either. And from the way Dario's expression shifted, hope and fear and careful control, I knew he understood that was the best I could offer. Through Christmas, he agreed. And Dario, if I stay longer, if we try this, it's on equal terms. I'm not an asset to protect. I'm not a problem to solve. I'm a person with my own life and my own choices. Equal terms, he repeated. I understand. Lucia stirred in her sleep and reached out. Her hand found mine and held on. She's going to make this very hard, I said quietly. She already has, Dario agreed. We sat in silence, Lucia sleeping between us, and I tried not to think about how right it felt, tried not to think about how dangerous it was to want this. But when Dario's hand found mine, careful, questioning, giving me every chance to pull away, I didn't. I held on, and for tonight, that was enough. Christmas Eve morning came with snow. I woke to white flakes drifting past my window and the sound of Lucia's laughter echoing through the hallways. For a moment, just one breath, I let myself pretend this was normal, that I belonged here. Then I remembered Mateo was in federal custody. Someone still wanted to destroy Dario's family, and I had stitches in my side from a bullet that had come too close. Normal was a luxury I couldn't afford. I found Lucia in the kitchen with Maria, the housekeeper, making gingerbread cookies. She saw me and launched herself across the room. "Santa, look, we're making your cookies." I caught her carefully, mindful of my stitches. "Those look amazing, sweetheart. Dad said you got hurt yesterday helping him with boring grown-up stuff." Her eyes were worried. "Are you okay?" "Just a scratch," I said, which was technically true. "Nothing Santa can't handle." She studied my face with that unsettling intelligence. "You're a very brave Santa. And you're a very observant kid." I ruffled her hair. "Where's your dad?" "Office. He's been on the phone since 6. She grabbed my hand. "But you can help me decorate cookies until he's done being boring." So I did. I spent an hour with an 8-year-old girl, turning gingerbread into edible art, and tried not to think about how much it would hurt when I eventually left. Tried not to think about how she'd already worked her way into the parts of my heart I'd sworn to protect. Dario found us covered in frosting and sprinkles. "I see my kitchen has been conquered," he said from the doorway. Lucia grinned. "We made you a cookie that looks like your face. See? Grumpy eyebrows and everything." He examined the frosted gingerbread man with exaggerated seriousness. "My eyebrows are not grumpy. They're thoughtful." "Grumpy," Lucia insisted. "Thoughtful," he countered. I watched them banter and felt something crack open in my chest. The realization that this was what Dario had been protecting. Not power or control, but this. Morning laughter and cookie debates and the ordinary magic of a child who felt safe enough to tease. "Lucia," Dario said gently, "I need to talk to Callista for a few minutes. Can you finish decorating with Maria?" Her smile dimmed. "Is it more boring grown-up stuff?" "Yes," he said. "But I promise we'll do something fun later. Maybe build a snowman." "Deal." She turned back to her cookies, and Dario gestured for me to follow him. His office was all business. Multiple monitors showing security feeds. Files spread across the desk. The controlled chaos of someone managing a crisis. "Mateo was transferred to federal custody at 2 this morning," he said, without preamble. "He's being held without bail on charges of conspiracy to kidnap, attempted murder, fraud, and about 15 other counts my lawyers are still compiling." "Good. He's talking." Dario pulled up a document on his screen, offering information in exchange for a deal. Names, operations, financial trails. The federal prosecutor thinks he's trying to take down half my organization to reduce his sentence. I sat in the chair across from his desk. Is he succeeding? He's causing damage. Dario's expression was controlled, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. 3 of my legitimate contracts are under sudden federal review. 2 of my security clients have terminated early. The media is already running stories about Mafia underboss arrested in kidnapping plot. They're not mentioning Lucia. Not yet. My lawyers got a court order protecting her as a minor, but the pressure is building. He closed the laptop and looked at me. Mateo's legal strategy is clear. Prove I'm too dangerous and unstable to have custody of a child. Every headline, every investigation, every contract termination builds his case. Can he actually win? In court? No, the evidence against him is overwhelming. Dario stood and moved to the window. But in the court of public opinion, he's already winning. I'm being painted as a criminal who put an innocent child in danger by bringing her into my world. Which means the custody challenge isn't over, I said slowly. Someone else will pick up where he left off. Someone who can use all this publicity to argue you're unfit. Exactly. He turned to face me. Mateo was the trigger, but he wasn't working alone. Someone funded the shell corporation. Someone provided the fabricated documents. Someone's still out there, waiting to see if his plan succeeds. My stomach went cold. Lucia's still in danger. Not immediate physical danger, not with Mateo in custody and my security tripled. But legal danger? Absolutely. His hands curled into fists. And I can't fight a custody battle the way I fight business rivals. I can't leverage or threaten or make problems disappear. I have to prove I'm a good father in the most public, scrutinized way possible. While someone looks for every mistake to use against you. Yes. He moved closer. Which is where you become a problem, Callista. I went still. What do you mean? You're a material witness to Mateo's crimes. You'll be called to testify. And when you do, every detail of how you came to be here will be examined. His eyes were dark. The spoofed email, the signature fraud, the fact that I kept you on the estate under protection, the fact that you're my ex-girlfriend who disappeared 3 years ago and suddenly reappeared at the exact moment someone targeted my daughter. They'll make it look like I was part of the plan, I breathed, or like I manipulated you into being here to provide cover. He sat on the edge of his desk. Either way, it makes me look worse. Either I'm the victim of an elaborate conspiracy that proves I can't protect my own home, or I'm the manipulator who uses women as pawns. So what are you saying? My voice came out harder than I intended. That I need to leave? Disappear again so I don't complicate your legal strategy? I'm saying I need to tell Lucia the truth about what happened. His voice was quiet. And I need to do it before someone else does. Before she hears it on the news, or from a lawyer, or from a distant relative who wants to use it against us. She's 8 years old, Dario. She doesn't need to know. She needs to know that someone she trusted tried to hurt her. He cut me off gently. She needs to know before she starts wondering why Mateo disappeared. Before she invents explanations that are worse than the truth. I thought of Lucia's bright smile, her Santa doesn't lie trust. The way she'd asked if I was real. This will terrify her, I said. Yes. He stood and moved to the door. Which is why I need you there when I tell her. Because she trusts you, Callista. And she's going to need someone she trusts when her world shifts. We told her in her room, surrounded by books and stuffed animals and all the safe things of childhood. Dario knelt in front of her chair. I sat on the bed within reach. Sweetheart, he started. You know how yesterday we picked you up early from school because someone tried to pretend to be your uncle? Lucia nodded, her rabbit clutched tight. That person was someone I trusted. Someone who worked for me. His name was Mateo. Dario's voice stayed steady, but I saw the cost of it. He wanted to take you away from me because he thought I wasn't doing a good job keeping you safe. But you keep me very safe, Lucia said, confused. I know, and a judge knows that too. But Mateo wanted to prove I wasn't safe, so he made a plan. He took her small hands in his. He's the one who switched the present at the party. He's the one who sent the fake uncle to your school. He was trying to scare us both. Her eyes went wide. Mateo did that? Yes. But he was nice to me. He gave me cookies. He helped with my homework. I know, baby. That's what makes it hard. Dario's voice cracked slightly. Sometimes people we trust do things that hurt us. And it's not your fault for trusting them. It's their fault for breaking that trust. Lucia's eyes filled with tears, and she pressed her face against her rabbit. Her shoulders shook with small, silent sobs. Dario pulled her into his arms immediately. It's okay to be sad, sweetheart. It's okay to be scared. I've got you. I liked him, she whispered into Dario's shoulder. I thought he was my friend. I know, I liked him too. I trusted him. Dario's hand stroked her hair. That's why it hurts so much. She pulled back enough to look at me, tears streaming down her face. Did Mateo hurt you too, Santa? A little bit, I said honestly, moving to sit beside them. But I'm okay. And more importantly, your dad made sure Mateo can't hurt anyone anymore. He's somewhere safe where police and judges can make sure he faces consequences. Is he in jail? Yes, Dario said. She processed this for a long moment, wiping at her tears. Are there more people who want to take me away? Dario's expression went carefully neutral. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. That's why we have extra security. That's why we're being extra careful. Because of my money, her voice was small. The trust fund from my real parents. Not your real parents. Your first parents, Dario corrected gently. I'm your real parent too. And yes, some people care more about money than about what's right. But I promise you, Lucia, I will never let anyone take you. Never. She threw herself at him, and he caught her, holding on tight. Over her shoulder, his eyes met mine, and I saw the question there. Did I do this right? Is she going to be okay? I nodded, even though I wasn't sure either. After a while, Lucia pulled back and looked at her father seriously. Can Santa stay for Christmas? All of Christmas? If she wants to, Dario said, looking at me. I want to, I said. I promised. Remember? Through Christmas. And after Christmas, Lucia asked, will you go away like before? The question hit like a physical blow. I don't know yet, sweetheart, I said, because lying to her was still not an option. Your dad and I are trying to figure out what happens next. But I promise I won't disappear without saying goodbye. No matter what, you'll know I care about you, okay? She studied me with those two old eyes, tears still wet on her cheeks. Grown-ups always leave. Some do, I admitted. But some stay, and some leave and come back. Life is complicated. I want you to be a comeback grown-up, she said. I'll try, I promised. I'll really try. It was the most honest thing I could give her. That afternoon, while Lucia napped, Dario got a call that changed everything. I was in the library reading when he found me, his face carved from stone. The federal prosecutor just informed my lawyers that someone filed an emergency custody petition, he said, without preamble. Lucia's maternal aunt, someone I've never met, someone who didn't attend the original custody hearings, is claiming that recent events prove I'm an unfit guardian. Can she do that? She just did. He handed me a document. Emergency hearing scheduled for December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. The same day as my legal meeting. The universe had a sick sense of timing. What does she want? Temporary custody pending a full investigation. She claims Lucia is in imminent danger, that my criminal associations make me unsuitable, and that a stable family environment away from my world is in her best interest. His voice was controlled fury. She's using Mateo's arrest, the publicity, everything. I scanned the petition. She's represented by Morrison and Chen. That's a top-tier family law firm. Someone with serious money is backing this. Which means Mateo gave them everything they needed before he was arrested. Dario moved to the window. Names, dates, security incidents. Every time I've had to use force to protect my business. Every connection that makes me look dangerous. You are dangerous, I said quietly. Not to Lucia. He turned. Never to her. I know that. But will a judge? Silence. My lawyers say the case is weak, he said finally. The aunt has no relationship with Lucia. No evidence of actual harm. No previous involvement in her life. But weak cases can still do damage, especially with media attention. What do you need? I need you to testify. His eyes locked on mine. You're a material witness to everything that happened, the gift swap, Mateo's plan, the shooting. You can testify about what you saw, how I responded, what the actual threat was. You witnessed the crisis firsthand, and you can provide context that counters their narrative. I'm your ex-girlfriend who mysteriously reappeared, I said. They'll shred my credibility. Or you're the professional event coordinator who was hired through fraud, became a material witness, and stayed to help protect a vulnerable child. His hand cupped my face. Tell the truth, Callista. That's all I'm asking. Tell them what you witnessed. And what have I witnessed, I asked. A man who bugs hallways and tracks his daughter's movements and holds people on his estate against their will? A man who loves his daughter enough to examine his own mistakes, he countered. A man who's learning that protection and control aren't the same thing. A man who's trying to be better. I wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this could backfire, but I thought of Lucia asking if I'd be a comeback grown-up. Thought of her trust and her fear and her desperate need for stability. I'll testify, I said. But Dario, I'm also a liability. They'll dig into why I left you 3 years ago. They'll use it to paint you as controlling and dangerous. Let them, his voice was fierce. Let them ask why you left. And then you tell them the truth, that I was suffocating you and you chose yourself. That I let you go even though it broke me. That's not the behavior of a violent, controlling criminal. That's the behavior of someone who loves someone enough to set them free. You're gambling everything on my testimony, making you look good. I'm gambling everything on the truth. He stepped back, giving me space. But Callista, if you testify, you're committed. You can't leave before the hearing. You can't change your mind. You'll be subpoenaed, deposed, cross-examined. Your entire life will be scrutinized. I know. Your legal meeting on the 27th. I'll reschedule. The words came out before I could second-guess them. Lucia matters more than a lawsuit settlement. His expression shifted, surprise and something deeper. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. I picked up the custody petition. Again. We need to prepare. They'll ask about the gift swap, the shooting, Mateo's access. They'll ask why you kept me here. They'll ask about our relationship. Then we tell the truth. He moved to his desk and pulled out a legal pad. Everything. The spoofed email, the signature fraud, the negotiation. Every choice you made, every term you demanded. We show them you had agency, that you weren't controlled or manipulated. And when they ask if we're romantically involved, he went still. What do you want me to say? The truth, I said. That we have a complicated history, that we're trying to figure out if there's a future, that you're learning to be someone I can trust again. And are you? Trying to figure out if there's a future? I met his eyes. Yes. But Dario, if we're going to survive this hearing, if you're going to keep Lucia, we need to be smarter than Mateo's plan. We need to find whoever's funding this custody challenge and prove they're acting in bad faith. How? Follow the money. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the original booking email. Morrison and Chen doesn't take cases out of charity. Someone's paying them a fortune. Find out who, and you find out who's really behind this. His eyes sharpened with the kind of focus that made him dangerous. My financial investigators are already tracing Mateo's accounts. I'll have them expand to the law firm's retainer payments. And I'll look at the event logistics again. Someone knew enough about your household to plan all this. That's not random intel. That's insider knowledge. I opened my laptop. Maybe Mateo had a partner we haven't identified yet. Or maybe the aunt is a front for someone else. Either way, we find them before the hearing. I looked up at him. And we destroy their case before they destroy yours. For the first time since the custody petition arrived, Dario smiled, sharp and cold and absolutely lethal. Partnership, he said. Partnership, I agreed. We worked, through the afternoon and into the evening, pulling financial records, cross-referencing security logs, building a timeline of every suspicious contact in the last 6 months. And somewhere in the middle of spreadsheets and depositions and legal strategy, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just helping Dario keep his daughter. I was fighting for a future I desperately wanted, but wasn't sure I deserved. Christmas Eve dinner was quiet. Lucia insisted we eat in the kitchen instead of the formal dining room, and she made Dario and me sit on either side of her like bookends. We had roasted chicken and vegetables and Lucia's gingerbread cookies for dessert. Outside, snow continued to fall, turning the estate into something from a winter fairy tale. Tomorrow's Christmas, Lucia said, swinging her legs under the table. Do we still do presents even though everything's been weird? Especially because everything's been weird, Dario said. Traditions matter, sweetheart. They remind us what's important. What's important, she asked. Family, he said, looking at me. However we define it. Lucia followed his gaze. Is Santa family now? The question hung in the air. I think, I said carefully, that family is the people who show up when things are hard, who stay when it would be easier to leave, who tell you the truth even when it's scary. So yes, Lucia said decisively, Santa is family. Dario's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. After dinner, Lucia wanted to watch a Christmas movie. We ended up on the couch in the media room, Lucia between us again, her head on my shoulder, her feet in Dario's lap. Halfway through the movie, she fell asleep. We should move her to bed, I whispered. In a minute, Dario said quietly, I want to remember this. Remember what? This feeling, that for one night, everything was exactly right. His eyes met mine over Lucia's sleeping form. I know tomorrow brings the hearing prep. I know we're still fighting, but tonight, Callista. Tonight we're just a family watching a movie on Christmas Eve. My throat went tight. Dario, I love you, he said simply. I loved you 3 years ago. I love you now. And I'll love you whether you stay or go. But I needed you to know that before the hearing, before the lawyers, before everything gets complicated again. Everything's already complicated. Then it can't get worse. His smile was soft. I love you. You don't have to say it back. You don't have to do anything. I just needed you to know. I looked at him holding his sleeping daughter. at the life he'd built from tragedy and control and fierce, imperfect love. And I knew I was in serious trouble. Because I loved him too. I loved the way he was learning to loosen his grip. Loved the way he fought for Lucia. Loved the way he'd let me go 3 years ago because it was what I needed, even though it destroyed him. I'm scared, I whispered. Of what? That I'll stay and it won't work. That I'll leave. And regret it forever. That loving you means losing myself again. I looked at Lucia. That loving her means I'll break when I eventually have to go. Who says you have to go? The hearing is a legal proceeding, not a life sentence. His free hand found my face. Stay, Callista. Not because you're trapped. Not because Lucia needs you, though she does. Stay because you want this. Because you think we can build something better than what we had before. Can we? I don't know, he admitted. But I want to try. I want to be the man who deserves you. The father who raises Lucia to be brave instead of careful. The partner who asks instead of commands. That's a lot of want. It's Christmas Eve, he said. I'm allowed to want impossible things. I shifted carefully, trying not to wake Lucia, and leaned across to kiss him, soft and slow and full of every complicated feeling I couldn't name. When I pulled back, his eyes were dark with hope. Through Christmas, I whispered. And then we'll see. I'll take it, he said. We carried Lucia to bed together, tucked her in with her rabbit, and stood in her doorway watching her sleep. The hearing's in 3 days, Dario said quietly. Whatever happens, whatever they throw at us, we face it together. Agreed? Agreed. He pulled me close, and I let myself lean into him, just for tonight, just for this moment of peace before the war resumed. Tomorrow we'd strategize and prepare and fight. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, we were just 3 people who'd found each other in the wreckage, and were trying to build something worth keeping. And that was enough. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening, for staying, for letting my stories keep you company. I hope this festive season brings you warmth, rest, and at least one moment that feels like a deep breath. I'm genuinely grateful you're here. Your time means a lot to me. Until the next story, take care of yourself.